What is up, guys? Eric here from Real Film Reviews, bringing you another video, this time with my top 15 movies of 2017. Now, I know I'm a little late to putting this video out, but my rule is that as long as the Oscars haven't happened, then I'm still in the clear to put this video up. There were a lot of movies that I had to catch up on, that I had to see and review for you guys, and that I needed to see before I felt comfortable doing this review. There are still a couple that I haven't gotten around to seeing. The two most notable ones are probably Mudbound and The Florida Project, so those two are not going to be on my list because I haven't seen them yet. However, this list is not what I think are the 15 best films of 2017. These are just my personal favorites. They won't necessarily go in order of the grade that I gave them because I try to be as unbiased as I can when I give my ratings. Obviously, my opinion will go into those ratings, so these aren't going to be like lowly rated films, but I'm just saying if something isn't exactly in order, it's because this is just my personal opinion. These are the films that I loved and that I will love to rewatch more and more. With that said, I do have a few honorable mentions that I want to get out. There's not a lot, but this year was honestly so good for movies. This list took me probably 4 or 5 goes before I actually got it to a point where I was like, yeah, I'm comfortable with where this is. So these honorable mentions are the ones that just barely didn't make this list. The first honorable mention that I have is Get Out, Jordan Peele's directorial debut. I think that this film was really well done. I love that it was sort of a mismatch of genres in that it was sort of a horror thriller but also a comedy. Daniel Kaluuya gave a very good performance, and it honestly just had an extremely interesting story. My next honorable mention is Kingsman: The Golden Circle. I loved Kingsman 1 so much, and I thought Kingsman 2 was a worthy successor. It's not as good as the original, but it was still a lot of fun. I still think Taron Egerton is a rising star in Hollywood, and I really would love to see him pick up some big roles, and I think that if you liked the first, or if you just like sort of zany comic book movies that don't feel like your traditional comic book film, to definitely check out Kingsman 2. And a film that I believe is one of the biggest snubs at the Oscars this year, which is Lego Batman. This movie was hilarious. Michael Cera as Robin gives one of my favorite voiceover performances I think I've ever heard. He was so hilarious in that role. Will Arnett did a great job, and this one didn't have the live action sequences like the Lego movie did, so I really don't understand why this didn't get an Oscar nomination, but Boss Baby did. Another honorable mention is War for the Planet of the Apes, the final Planet of the Apes film in this new series that is starring Andy Serkis as Caesar. I thought that this was a great finale to the series. I really enjoyed the story. I loved Serkis' performance. I think the whole movie was honestly really good, and I think if you haven't seen any of those, now that the full trilogy is complete, you should definitely watch all 3, because I think it's going to go down as one of the most underrated trilogies in history. And my final honorable mention is Split, the new M. Night Shyamalan film starring James McAvoy. His performance in this movie was overlooked like crazy this award season. Not surprising at all though, because no one expected him to get nominated since he starred in sort of a horror movie, but this movie was really good. His performance is what carries the whole film, and I think that if you liked old M. Night Shyamalan, you should definitely check this out because it's him getting back into his classic form. Alright, well, with all of the honorable mentions done, let's now get into the list of my top 15 favorite films of 2017. Number 15 is a movie that I actually just recently saw, which is Good Time, starring Robert Pattinson. This movie came out really early in 2017. It was a big favorite at a lot of the film festivals. I just recently got to see it and do my review for it. I really loved the aesthetic of this film. The lighting and the cinematography in this movie are some of the best that I saw all of last year. It's upsetting that it sort of got overlooked since it's a very small film. Pattinson's performance is also absolutely phenomenal. If you enjoy films like Drive and Only God Forgives, really if you like Nicholas Winding Refn films, I would recommend checking this movie out, because while it doesn't have the hyper violence of those movies, it does have that beautiful aesthetic that he's somehow able to pull out of just neon lights and really strong performances. And I really enjoyed this movie, which I didn't expect to, because I felt like since it was such a small film, it wouldn't feel like it could carry that much, but it was really solid, and like I said, if you like Drive, definitely check this one out. Now, number 14 is the only one on this list that I will admit is cheating, because I couldn't really justify putting all 3 of these movies on the list separately because it would eat up too much of my list, and because I consider them all fairly equal, but I had to put Wonder Woman, Thor Ragnarok, and Spider-Man Homecoming all in this list. They sort of take the 14 spot as the superhero movie spot, and I think that each of these movies has amazing things about them. Wonder Woman has Gal Gadot's amazing performance, along with really flashy action and a really great love story that I don't think anyone was expecting to pull out of a DC film. Thor Ragnarok is arguably the funniest movie in the Marvel Universe. Taika Waititi did such a good job directing this movie and playing Korg in it. We get to see Chris Hemsworth sort of expand what he's able to do in the Marvel Universe, adding comedy to his already impressive repertoire, and I think the whole movie was just a lot of fun. It had great action, great comedy, and a great story. And then Spider-Man Homecoming, which also had great action, and I really enjoyed and was very funny, but the reason Spider-Man Homecoming gets lumped in with these two is because it has, in my opinion, the best villain that we have seen in all of the Marvel Cinematic Universe in Michael Keaton's Vulture. That scene when they are in the car talking is one of the best scenes in superhero movie history. It is absolutely phenomenal acting on both people's parts, and Keaton deserves all the praise in the world for that performance. Number 13 is Kumail Nanjiani's sort of big screen lead debut in The Big Sick, a film that he and his wife wrote together and got an Oscar nomination for. This is the based on somewhat true events, but then also changing the details so it's funnier story of how he and his wife met after she fell into a coma and he had to spend time with her parents. Ray Romano plays her dad, Holly Hunter plays her mom. Both of them give really strong performances. Kumail Nanjiani is great. The movie is hilarious. It's also heartwarming, and it honestly is one of the most true love stories that is about having a relationship in the modern times. And I think that that's something that we need on screen nowadays, because so many romance films are based in period pieces or back in the 80s or something, but this one being placed right now in the modern era makes it so much more relatable when you watch it. Number 12 goes to Edgar Wright's Baby Driver. I have rewatched this film a couple times since it came out. I think that it's a really solid film. I don't think it's his best film. Arguably, you could say that it's worse than almost the entire Cornetto trilogy, I think. It's definitely worse than Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz and At World's End. It's debatable, but it is a lot of fun, and I think the amount of work that was put into the aesthetic and the music of this film alone is so impressive. I also have a soft spot in my heart for John Barenthal, and I love him in this movie. I thought Ansel Elgort did a great job. Lily James was also phenomenal, and I can't wait to see her do more stuff along with Ansel, because I think the two of them are two very young stars in Hollywood that have proven that they can do really serious roles this year, and I'd like to see them grow more and more as actors. But really, this movie was funny, but it also had amazing action sequences that were great. They were great driving sequences, great shootouts, great on-foot chases. Really, this movie had everything you want out of a solid action movie. It just also had a bunch of great music. Number 11 goes to the frontrunner to win Best Director, and that is The Shape of Water, Guillermo del Toro's most recent film. This movie was a very heartwarming love story about a woman who falls in love with a fish man. And I know that that sounds crazy, but this movie was really great. It was just really good. If you tear it down to the bare minimum, it's about two beings that don't feel welcome where they are and that they belong, and they find each other. And I think that that's a really beautiful sentiment. It also had Michael Shannon as arguably the most despicable villain of all of 2017. He's so good in this movie because he's so terrible. And then also Octavia Spencer, who's hilarious in this movie. Her character is so funny in sort of being the audience's mindset as to what's happening, because she's just like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? This is insanity. But I really loved how she sort of played the audience in the film. And now we get into the top 10, which I was unable to limit it down to, as you can see why. Number 10 goes to the animated film Coco. I did not go into this movie expecting to love it as much as I did. Obviously, Pixar always makes really quality films, but this movie blew me away. I didn't expect to almost cry when I went into this movie. I didn't expect to learn about culture or have more respect for friends that come from that culture after seeing this film. It's just a really beautiful film about family and remembrance and making sure that those who matter know that they matter to you, because that's something that I think for kids is very hard to remember, because you get mad at people. And I think that this movie showcased that no matter what, family is there for you forever and always, and I really loved the moral that this film had. Number 9 goes to The Disaster Artist, the James Franco Seth Rogen film that is about the making of the film The Room, made by Tommy Wiseau. This movie was absolutely hilarious. It's also really wonderful to watch on screen because it sort of showcases that American drive to always be the most you can be, and how people should never give up on their dreams, because these are guys that didn't give up on their dreams, and they made it, just not in the way that they ever thought they would make it. And I really loved the story. It was so funny, and as someone who sort of is part of that cult following of The Room, it was great to see it get so much exposure in mass media. I think this movie's really solid, and I think that if you have ever seen The Room or know anything about it, you should check out this movie because it's a lot of fun. Number 8 goes to Star Wars The Last Jedi, which is actually probably one of the most controversial picks that I have on this list because of the amount of people that didn't like it, or at least didn't think that it was as good as a lot of other people did think. I thought this movie was extremely enjoyable. I loved Kylo Ren and the way they went with his character. I love a lot of the story choices that they made that I obviously won't spoil. I think that this movie took a lot of steps to leave behind the very safe way to make a Star Wars movie, and I think that's upsetting, is that Star Wars fans look at the original trilogy and they hold it in this high esteem, and they say, we love this, but don't just remake that, because that's why everyone didn't like The Force Awakens. So Rian Johnson decided to make a movie that doesn't feel at all like a Star Wars movie, and then everyone was mad that it didn't feel enough like one. I loved the fact that it didn't feel like a Star Wars movie. I think it had great performances, an awesome story, one of the best lightsaber fights we've ever seen in a Star Wars movie, and I just had a ton of fun watching it in theaters, and I can't wait to watch it again and add it to my collection with all the other Star Wars films. Number 7 is Call Me By Your Name. Now, this was a movie that in my review I even say I didn't go into this expecting to love this movie as much as I did. This was a movie that genuinely, meant so much to me when I watched it in theaters because of how much it has to do with love and relationships and everything that goes into that. And I found it to be such a beautiful film that has so much to say about being an actual person in a relationship and it failing. This is one of the most real relationship films I feel like I've ever seen. I absolutely adored it, and if you haven't seen it and if you have the opportunity to, watch this movie because it's absolutely beautiful. It's a gorgeous film with phenomenal performances, absolutely amazing performances, and also, can we all just agree that Armie Hammer deserves an Oscar nomination for that dancing sequence in this film alone? That's one of my favorite scenes of all of 2017. It's so great, and he's so good in it, and this movie's great, and I highly recommend that you watch it. Number 6 goes to the directorial debut of Taylor Sheridan, that is Wind River. He also wrote this film along with Hell or High Water and Sicario. This is the third film in his American Frontier trilogy. This film follows an animal tracker who, after a Native American girl is murdered on a reservation, he helps an FBI agent hunt down the people that did it. Jeremy Renner gives one of the best performances of the year that has been overlooked by everyone, and I don't know why, because this isn't one where it was like, oh, no one was able to see this movie. Lots of people saw this movie, and everyone loved this movie. It's so good. The climactic sequence is one of my favorite scenes of the year. It's arguably the best climactic scene of the year for me personally. I thought it carried so much weight and was so powerful, and I love Jeremy Renner's quiet, stoic performance in this film. Elizabeth Olsen also did a really good job as this sort of FBI agent who felt in over her head, and with the help of Jeremy Renner was able to work this case out. I really loved this movie. If you saw Hell or High Water or Sicario, or if you like modern Western films, check this movie out because it's so good, and I feel like it's not getting the praise that it deserves. Alright, now we are at number 5. We're getting into the actual heavy hitters of the year, and number 5 I feel like is one that a lot of people have forgotten about because it came out so early in 2017, and that is John Wick Chapter 2. I love John Wick 1. John Wick 1 is one of my all-time favorite action films, easily, and John Wick Chapter 2 is also one of my favorite action films of all time. Keanu Reeves is so damn good in these movies. He's amazing. He does almost all of his own stunts. The action is the best action you'll see on screen from an American film, probably all of last year. It's so fluid and directed so well and so well choreographed, and Keanu sells every single moment of it. You need to watch this movie. If you like action films, honestly, if you just like good movies, watch John Wick 1 and John Wick 2. They're both superb films that showcase what truly good filmmaking can turn an action movie into. It's not shaky cam, it's not lazy camera work, it's wide shots with actors that know what they're doing to make a great script become even better with these phenomenal action sequences that you are so invested in and you care so much about. And I just love this movie so much. I've already watched it like 5 more times over the course of the year. It's so good. Watch John Wick. Number 4 goes to the favorite to win Best Picture this year. That is Martin McDowell's 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. Frances McDormand's performance in this movie is absolutely phenomenal. Sam Rockwell is so good. Woody Harrelson, I really loved in this movie. I don't know if he deserved the Oscar nomination, but he's so good, and he has one of my favorite scenes in the whole film. This movie is hilarious while also being heart-wrenching and being a very accurate depiction of people from the Midwest in a small town, and I really loved that. As someone who comes from somewhere like that, I could appreciate the accuracy that it gave that type of place, and I think that obviously, if you're a fan of awards films, check this out. But honestly, if you just like dark comedies, if you like films like Fargo and other films, I really compare this film to a Coen Brothers movie, which is unfair to Martin McDowell because it's such a good movie, but it's very easy to compare it to that. If you like those kinds of films, check this one out because you'll love it. Number 3 on my list goes to Logan, a movie that I genuinely believe could be in the argument for the greatest superhero film of all time. Hugh Jackman's performance in this movie is amazing. Daphne Keane is so good. Patrick Stewart, another actor, I know I've said it multiple times in this video, feel like he's been overlooked for awards. He's great in this movie. He gives such a good performance. Not to say that he overshadowed Jackman, who I also think gave such a strong performance as this truly broken Wolverine. He's not the man or the monster that he once was. He is now just a dying old man, and I really loved the fact that they were able to take one of the most deadly and sort of death-escaping heroes of all time and make him feel so vulnerable in this film. It finally was given the rated R rating that it deserved. It had the great violence. It had the real grit that this film needed to have a proper send-off for Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, as he did state that this would be his last time being Wolverine. I think this movie is a true love letter to old school westerns. It's a great love letter to just truly great films, and I think that if you like superhero movies, if you like westerns, if you like good film, watch Logan, because this movie is so good. I almost cried, and I don't know. I don't know how else to portray that this film is so genuinely amazing, because I feel like because it's a superhero movie, so many people overlook it and just assume it's like every single other one. It's not. There is not another superhero movie that is like Logan. So if you don't like the other ones, watch this one because it's nothing like them. Number 2 on my list, and my buddy Andy is going to be mad that this isn't number 1, is Lady Bird. Saoirse Ronan's most recent film, written and directed by Greta Gerwig, is a masterpiece. This movie is 90 minutes of perfection, and I will stand by that till the day I die. This movie does not miss a beat at any moment through the whole story. It is the best coming-of-age movie that has been made since Boyhood, and I loved it so much. It is a beautiful story about family and about moving forward in your life and about that truly interesting place that people are in when they leave high school or when they leave college, where you don't know where you're going to go or what you're going to do, but you know one thing, and it's that you don't want to be where you are right now. And I think this film captured that angst so perfectly. If you liked Boyhood, if you've liked other films that are made by directors similar to Richard Linklater or other movies that Greta Gerwig has written, like 21st Century Woman, watch this movie. It is a beautiful story about a mother and a daughter and a family and their relationship with one another. It seems like it could very easily be boring, but Gerwig was somehow able to make this movie feel so important in every single scene and make you feel so attached to every single character and relate to at least a small aspect of every single character in this film. It is so good. It is a phenomenal film. Saoirse Ronan's performance is breathtakingly amazing, and I highly recommend every single person to see this movie. And my #1 film of 2017, which I'm sure isn't too hard for a lot of you to guess because there's a poster of it right behind me, is Blade Runner 2049. This is definitively, after thinking about it for hours and months since this film released, is the most visually stunning movie I have ever seen in a movie theater. Denis Villeneuve's direction in this film is the best direction I have seen on a movie in I don't even know how long. It is so good. It is up there with some of the greatest directorial jobs of all time. The effects in this movie are some of the greatest I have ever seen in a film. The writing is superb. The cinematography is amazing. There is nothing in this movie that I would change. That is a hard thing to do with a movie that is almost 3 hours long, to make it so good and so perfect that I don't want to change a single frame of it. Every single shot, every single frame of this film is a piece of art, and I adored every single second of it. This is the biggest oversight in my mind in all of the awards season, that this film has been overlooked in every aspect. Performance-wise, Ryan Gosling is damn amazing in this movie. Harrison Ford, really good. Jared Leto, really good. Directing-wise, he didn't get nominated for the Oscar. What? Like, that's insanity. This movie is amazing. I don't care that it didn't make a ton of money. It doesn't matter. The movie is beautiful. It is a work of art, and it deserves all the awards. Give it all of them. Just give it every award there's ever been, because it deserves it, because it's so damn good. I want this movie to get the praise that it deserves, because no one is giving it that praise. So many people that I've talked to saw this film and were like, I didn't expect to like this movie because it's just some sci-fi film. And they're like, but I loved it. I have friends that have only seen Blade Runner 1 once, and they're like, yeah, that movie was perfect. Blade Runner 2, amazing. This will go down just like Blade Runner 1 did, as a movie that changed the genre and that very much so mastered everything that that genre is supposed to stand for. It is a beautiful piece of cinematic art, and Denis Villeneuve deserves all the credit in the world for it, because he put together a film that most people didn't think deserved to be made at all and made it a cinematic masterpiece. And that is absolutely stunning. It is a crazy thing to be able to do, and the only thing that there is to say thank you to Denis Villeneuve for making a movie as beautiful and as breathtaking as Blade Runner 2049 was. Well guys, those are my picks for the best movies of 2017. In the comments down below, feel free to sound off on what some of your favorite movies of 2017 are. If you disagree with some of my picks, if you agree with them, just let me know. As always, I'm Eric. If you enjoyed this video, please do like, subscribe, share everything we do here on Real Film Reviews, and hope to see you guys later.